Welcome. Satsang. I was going to say the word satsang is not only very beautiful, but I feel like it's kind of an honor even to say this word. But then I deeply feel that in fact it is humbling, because satsang indicates gathering and truth. So when in front of the truth, or if you ask yourself what the truth really is, then necessarily your mind is hesitant to describe it. Because then it recognizes that it is secondary to truth. So I think truth is the most important thing, after all. I think that any time, any moment you ask yourself if you are true to yourself, are in touch with the truth within, then you get the answer, or the answers that you may have had lingering in your mind regarding anything. Especially concerning your state of mind, your state of consciousness. You come to see that there are many levels where you can not simply get stuck, but where you can also free yourself, find freedom in the midst of whatever may be going on other levels. And that, and asking this question to yourself, whether you are welcoming the truth to speak for you, you find out at that very moment where you're at. And you find out that you have the choice to either welcome the truth or to be in denial of the truth by following the untruth, by following all the challenges of the mind, the worries, the uncertainties, the fears. And so even at the midst of the mind's activity or even turmoil, if you ask yourself whether you are accepting the truth, then you can clearly make the choice as to do so, to accept the truth fully and let go of everything else naturally, without any question, effort. no matter what's taking place on other levels, on other dimensions, from the grossest to the most ethereal, all fleeting phenomena, while the truth stands forth, permanent, eternal, yourself. And it's all in this moment. It's not a question of time, of circumstances, of physical situations. It's all about asking yourself, where am I in myself? How am I relating with myself? Am I standing in truth? Am I inviting truth or not? The answer is there. As to discard everything that is not true. And to merge with everything that is beyond the untruth, that which even gives you the very insight into what it is that is going on in the moment, already present. The gift of life and its whole immensity, timeless, eternally present as your own self, here, now, and this moment. So everything comes from truth and goes back to truth. Nothing of what we conceive of our lives is our lives. Everything we conceive of our lives is secondhand, illusory, because it lacks the greater picture. It lacks the understanding of the absolute reality of truth, standing as itself eternally present in this here and now. So in that regard, no matter what's going on in the world, especially today, it's just a transitional phase. And if something, what's happening today, is a call, is the very call to recognize truth and find unity in truth. And I think if the humanity is locked down as such right now, it's because the time has come to recognize the truth, to see that in truth we are united, nowhere else. So it is the greatest time that could possibly take place in human history. but there is no other way out. It's a time of ascension to the sacredness, the purity, and the very only reality of the truth. You may call it ascension into the divine, for it is divine, the truth, being timeless, eternal, the ever-present moment, unescapable, undeniable, forever there, for you to free yourself of all limitations, of all burdens, of all problems. So it only suffices to see yourself as you are, no matter what's going on with the mind. If you can see yourself as you are in the moment without continuing the mental chattering, then the truth stands by your side. And allows you to choose whether to follow the mind or to let go of the mind and anchor yourself in that which alone is. And I think that the bigger the challenge is to step out of mind and to stand firm in truth, the more impact it has in terms of becoming a master of yourself. And most possibly at the level that has never presented itself before. And the more, consequently, you bring this into the world,
that's a hard thing to do because the body mind, the ego, wants some kind of instant gratification. And to just stand as we are in awareness seems rather boring to the mind. And you don't see the rewards, like you don't necessarily see it, or maybe never, or maybe you see it like 3 months down the road. So it's challenging for the ordinary person to stand in awareness, to constantly bring yourself back as awareness. Most people need a carrot or something to lead them along the way, to encourage them to do this, so even though they don't see an immediate result. It's not a question, it's a comment.
But I think with today's situation, people are forced to become responsible for themselves because you can't function in confusion, antagonist, division, frustrations, fears. And the only way you can get out of it is not by waiting for anything outside to change, because you are the one responsible for the way you feel and look at everything. So in terms of rewards, if you come to a place where you choose not to go into the mind, but stand above the mind, then the experience, the reality of it stand forth in the moment. But if you don't see that, you may even be caught in the mind and still kind of distracted by the ideas of the mind. Then it is as if you are sleeping, not even aware that you may be suffering. I think a lot of what it is that we don't want to see that we are suffering. So we want to distract ourselves with ideas of what we like, or how things should or shouldn't be. And we look at spirituality as just some other entertainment, other ways to escape, coming to face ourselves as we are. Because facing ourselves as we are, why could it be boring? Because you are that, you are yourself, making yourself feel like this. Nothing stands on its own in one way or another. What is the infinite. Can't compare anything in there.
So it's only one more story we're telling ourselves about the present moment. That if we're just standing as awareness, it's another story that the mind makes up about it being born.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's just one aspect. When you find yourself dealing with problems, or even with this present situation, with the restriction and so on, and you get to feel frustrated and so on, even depressed, that's when you come to realize that being in the moment in terms of stepping above that level of consciousness is essential, because you know at that place that you can no longer rely on the world. You can no longer rely on what they say. Because you are the one creating this for yourself by how you're giving so much of your attention into these negative energies. So by choosing not to go there, but in abiding in the silence of your being, you have the direct experience of something greater. And it's not just that you experience something greater, you come to see who you are. As the truth that you are. As the timeless being that you are. Not needing anything to be different. Not seeking for things to be any better. Because you tap into something infinite, whole, sacred. Even the idea of getting anything fades away. The idea of getting somewhere or getting rid of something or some circumstances, it's not even relevant at that point. Just like when you experience deep peace and dreamless sleep, no matter what the world is, it no longer exists.
I think it requires a certain amount of faith or belief, because especially if the habits are very strong over this lifetime or many others before, the habit of being in your mind and expecting something from the outside. When you just stand in the moment as awareness, it does not necessarily feel that you're tapping into something grandiose, sacred, big, infinite. Doesn't to me anyway.
How can you recognize
The infinite? Don't know, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in my head.
It's neither this nor that. But then you can look at yourself and see whether what it is you're concerned about is your imagination or not. Like if you're looking to experience something of a sacred nature, so to say, it's an idea. You have an idea of what that sacredness may be, that experience of sacredness may be. And would like to revive or give reality to this imaginary experience. It's nothing real. What would be something really sacred if not something that remains untouched by the mind? That is sacredness. Even something that cannot be experienced. That is sacredness. And yet, in reality, this is what we are experiencing every single moment. Every single moment we're experiencing the untouchable. The untamable. The unknown. Forever unknown. Even concerning the body, like the fear of losing the body, it's an idea. What do we know of the body if not an idea of the body? Even the experience of the body itself. We experience the body through the body's mechanism, like its sensory faculties. Out of its own sensory faculties, we experience our body. So in a way, our experience of the body is limited. Like for instance, we may be having a certain experience around body, but how do we actually experience everyone else's body? We don't. Right?
So that gives the illusion of separation to the mind.
Yeah. Even the sense of I. There is no sense of I without ideas attached to this sense of I. There are no ideas in the sense of I, then where is the I? The I that we always take ourselves to be. No ideas, no associations. No associations, no recording. It is not possible to have any tangible sense of I. You cannot know anything without memory, association with things of the past. So knowing is relative. Not knowing is absolute.
Could you share your thoughts about assisted dying? More and more I'm hearing of people that are older usually and suffering from something and choosing assisted dying. As far as a karmic thing, or I think ultimately it doesn't matter. Is that what you would say? Or is that bad karma or
No.
no?
But the thing is, we can't put our feet in someone else's shoes. It can be the right thing for someone, and it can be the wrong thing for someone else. How are you going to know? The thing is, our notion of death and life is not what life and death really is. We see two things. And mostly we see life as a living organism that comes to an end. Something tangible. But even that is a relative perception. If you separate the body from the mind and consciousness and life as a whole, then you see something dying. But if all is the whole, then no matter the changes taking place in the whole remains, stays the same. If you see yourself as the whole, then there is no dying. There is no difference between dying and living. Only on the level of the phenomenon, the level of relative perception. There is death and there is life as two separate things. Even for oneself, can you remember when you were born? It's going to be the same when you die. You won't know. You won't necessarily see a difference either.
Like I was in the hospital recently, and they put me out, and it was very smooth. The going and the coming was very smooth, but in between it was like zero. Is dying like this? It's just nothing. It's like a black hole. Oh, that's
But how do you know there was nothing?
well, my mind wasn't capable of perceiving anything going on, basically.
But in order to experience it, you must have been there.
Well, it's kind of in retrospect, because I know when I was laying in bed, they put the things, the medicine and the fluid, and then I feel something, and then that's it. That's my last perception. And then I know I suddenly am awake again, so I know there's a gap in between because of time, but really there's nothing in that gap. I just know from comparing that period with that period that there was.
Are you sure?
I'm not. Maybe all kinds of stuff happened. I have no idea. Well, all kinds of stuff did happen, but I couldn't tell you what those were.
But that's different. But you do remember the nothingness, what you call the nothingness, don't you?
Yeah.
It means you must have been there.
Yeah. Well, yes, but was it I that was there? Doesn't feel like, oh, I was there. Something was there.
Consciousness.
Awareness, consciousness. You use awareness and consciousness interchangeably.
Yeah.
Because especially when we're talking about something medical, you kind of lose consciousness, right? So there's awareness there.
Yeah, but that's more like losing the activity of the mind.
As opposed to
Losing consciousness. You don't lose consciousness. It's just your mental activity that comes to an halt. So we associate our sense of consciousness to the mental activity, out of which we assume to be this personal I, bound to this mind body. But you are not that. That takes place in your experience as consciousness. But you are consciousness. Because all of these must report to something for you to admit the existence of either the body, the mind, or whatever. They must report to something. They must report to you as consciousness. Therefore, you are consciousness. So, in your experience, you saw your mental activity coming to an halt. You witness that, and you also witness the absence of the activity of mind and the arising of the activity of mind in consciousness.
Maybe it's helpful if you could elaborate on the difference between perception and awareness. Like awareness and consciousness. So there's the senses perceive.
Perceive is more something that has to do with someone perceiving something, like subject and object. Whereas awareness is more like awareness reflecting on itself. Awareness being aware that it is aware as a one circuit of function. Whereas perception, here anyway, involves a perceiver and an object perceived. And without an object or a perceiver, then perception, there is no perception. Whereas awareness does not need an object of awareness in order to know that it is.
So when you're in deep anesthesia, the perceiver is offline. Awareness is, and that's where the gap appears.
On the level of mind only. At the level of a consciousness, it's continuous. The experience of itself is continuous.
I really like how you started the sense and asking yourself about truth. Am I truth? I forget how you said it exactly. But it just seems so direct. I mean, because hopefully it just seems actually. One can't really know because I like what you say. There's no separation yet. There's nothing that isn't consciousness, and it's known. I know that truth of myself, and then I know the untruth of the mind, and they go back and forth. The identity, and get immersed in the mind. So if I ask myself that question, you started with, am I true? And then that takes the attention deeper. And then whatever reveals itself is still kind of being revealed in the process of mind. So if I ask myself that, unless I'm established in the truth, in the instant, we're just beyond time. I am the truth, I am that truth. Everything is that truth. Am I truth? Where is truth? Am I that truth? And just be. So if you could speak to that more, I'd appreciate it. You're always so clear to explain. Yeah, I appreciate that.
The thing is, usually the moment you pay attention to what's going on in the moment with your mind, the way you're approaching the situation or dealing with the situation you're experiencing in the moment, at that very moment, as you pay attention and want to know the truth, then necessarily whatever you may have been thinking about that is veiling that truth fades away. No matter what you may have been thinking about or be so concerned about, fades away. Right? So that's really all that is required. The rest you don't know.
No.
The thing is, we know so little about the soul when the whole existence of the body revolves around the choices that the soul makes prior to this incarnation. And usually when the soul has gone through the experiences that they wanted to go through in this life, then that's when the body dies.
Okay.
So in a way you could say that the soul has left the body of its own accord.
Okay.
It's just how it goes.
Mhm.
All you gotta do is watch the process, you know. Whatever feels right to you is, you will simply move towards that, and you'll be in peace with it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
When you get into a state of dreamless sleep, the mental faculty is altered. Therefore, the body has no longer anything to report to. Therefore, nobody. Which is to say that what we call death of the body is a second-hand understanding of what is actually taking place in reality. You know, like as we speak within our own body, there are cells that die and come into existence. It's the same within consciousness. And infinity. There are infinities of things dying and coming into existence.
It appears that there's a greater process, like a cosmic process. And what's happening right now in the state of the human realm is like a purging or a cleansing or a preparation for a world that is more connected to the truth. Maybe this isn't a question. I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going. But I've had visions where like the dying and being reborn happen every second, every nanosecond. It's constantly dying, reborn, this, like the cells. And all over the planet right now, humans are dying and being born right now, just like the cells in our body are all over the planet. Death, rebirth. And it's like maybe a tide or a wave of consciousness that's sort of growing and or raising itself up out of lower frequencies or something like that. And it sort of just puts into it this bigger perspective of life and death on a relative level. And there's dimensions of relativity as well. Sorry, this is very difficult to talk about, not easy to talk about.
Well, there are cycles. The universe has a manifestation of the immaterial. Moves in waves and cycles. So I think humanity has lived within a certain cycle for many years, thousands of years. And that now the time has come to start a new cycle. But not just the earth plane on its own, but in relation with the other universes revolving around. As to ascend on a much higher level of functioning and frequencies. It's like this with the body too. You know, we're young, we get old, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Just like waves in the ocean, there's a progression, a peak, and then a phasing back into the ocean. I think in terms of the universe, it's kind of similar in a way that it expands and contracts and leave ways to other universes which goes through similar patterns.
So like on a personal level, It's like a microcosm of a greater system process. So it seems like for me. So that it's not really a personal life here. It's a mirror of the whole.
And in that regard, I think even what's going on in the world right now is also what the individual is experiencing. As if there were these opposing tendencies meeting, struggling in order for something else to take place, the rebirth of who you actually are, beyond this realm of opposites. You could even say that the earth plane has started a process of not simply purging, but of elevation, where there is a call for an awakening, a recognition of what is true, what is this very life about, in order to tune in with a greater plan, greater universes into which this planetary system is part of. I think you can actually experience it for yourself as you see yourself maybe wondering about what's going on in the world and experiencing the uncertainty as such, the fear and insecurity and so on. And seeing that by giving it attention within yourself, you are creating this experience for yourself, while realizing that you have the actual choice not to stand in that, thereby bringing about the deep changing within yourself, as if you can no longer live this kind of battle. Whereas in prior times, you could easily switch from one state to the other and it didn't seem like a big deal. Whereas now it's more disconcerting. So it's actually what's taking place in the world also right now. Time to become responsible for what's going on within oneself and stop depending on the environment, expecting the environment to go a certain way or whatnot, or relying on your own ability to master yourself. Keep yourself at any level that you want for yourself, by how you direct your attention. So I think this type of situation is also what's going on in the world. You know? As if the conflicting situation of like evil forces and force of light must come to a term. and laid out the path to unity, reality, and truth.
It starts with the individual, starts with me. I feel like there's been times where I've viewed myself as a victim, that I don't have the free will to move my attention to pay attention, to choose to not pay attention to certain influences. I felt like, well, I'm just a victim of media, or I'm a victim of politics or something like that. But the awakening is, I have the power to put my attention on certain objects. I can choose to put it on the media, or I can choose to put it on how I'm thinking about the media.
The funny thing with this is that as much as we talk about becoming responsible for ourselves, as much as it's more a question of tapping into the truth of yourself, out of which you come to follow or not follow certain thoughts, and thereby maintain yourself at the right place. So it's less a question of will than a question of tapping into the right place, out of which you do the right thing, direct your attention in the right manner. As if to say that it is consciousness itself which is doing this. In fact, this is what's happening.
The mind tries to take credit for it. As standing in the truth. That to use yes, this remaining in the truth when the mind attacks, when the mind tries to take the credit, tries to understand. It's not moving, not staying.
Seeing what's taking place as it is. So the moment you see what's taking place as it is, your mind is then free. It's when you're not wanting to see your mind as it is that you are under its control. Reacting from one impression to the other, one perception to the other, one thought to the other, one feeling to the other. But the moment you simply recognize what's happening as it is, then you're no longer reacting. No reacting, no conditioning. No reacting, you are free. The truth comes forward and allows you to discern, see what is what exactly, out of which you do the right thing, think the right thing. Something feels right to be done in a certain way, then it happens naturally, effortlessly. spontaneously. And then if you start seeing that you may have a doubt, or so you start questioning, then you look at that. And if you look at it as it is, then you see that you're just thinking. It's not necessary. And so you move like this, one step at a time. Keep your balance in seeing everything happening as it is. And at some point, whichever momentum may have been there before would prompt you to keep thinking a certain way or whatnot, then that slows down. Because its root is being cut down. At some point, nothing is left. So you remain still. And you're like just watching everything, not necessarily reacting from anything, not thinking anything, as if nothing is of any concern anymore. And then whoop, mind comes in with some thoughts and worries or fear. You watch it again. Don't do anything about it. You watch it. As you watch it, as it is, you're stepping out of it. And it is clear as to whether you go in that direction or not. Your thoughts and your feelings, whatever it is. But then on the level of the mind, you want answers. You want something tangible. You want to see certain things go a certain way according to what you believe, according to what you wish or whatnot. It's all imagination. But when you're engaged in it, it becomes real for you. But when in it, you simply watch. Then you start seeing, oh, this is just mine. Right? If it's just mine, then you don't go there. Just let it dissipate. The next thing you know, you do something or some event happen that you would never have thought it would possibly happen. And you move in a certain direction. We experience that all the time, but we don't pay attention to it. It happens all the time. In fact, it has always happened that way. It's only the degree at which we have investing in our thoughts that have created this confusing situation towards what's actually taking place and truly happening. And when you're caught in the confusion, then it is as if your life is confusing, but it's not your life that is confusing, it's you that is confused in your mind. Once the confusion is no longer there in your mind, then life flows the way it meant to flow, as it has always been, and will always be. So when you experience confusion, know that this is in your mind, it's not your life. You watch it and admit for yourself that This is what's taking place in your mind. Relax it. Then all of a sudden you see that you hear a bird, the wind in the trees, and life is different. It's something else. The next day you wake up and you do things that in a way that you would never have thought you would have done. Right? Every day you do things differently, no matter what, all the time. Things are happening. You know, we all know these times where you think you've come in a place in your life where you don't know what to do. But that's just in relation with what's going on in your mind, nothing else. All the while things are going exactly where you should be going. And then one day you kind of get tired of thinking too much. And so then things go well. Or things went in ways that you would never have thought. Or you may have thought that it would be the worst, but turned out to be the best. Or having gone through some really hard times and you've talked to your friends about it, and then at the end you're a step above. And that was the purpose. Purging time. All for the best. So, yeah, watching is not difficult. Everything as it is. Like, just with the body, for instance, the moment you feel your body, you start to relax, right? You may see that it's not necessary to have certain tension. Just by giving it attention, you naturally relax. Isn't it? It's not like you're relaxing.
It's not a doing.
No. Because you're present, then action takes place of its own accord. Everything goes back to its natural state. So it's the same with the mind. You watch it. Sometimes, yes, you need to like tell yourself, okay, stop, watch yourself, right? You need some kind of equivalent energy. But you stop, you breathe deep, then you see, you step out of it. You naturally do the right thing without having thought of doing anything other than taking the time to hold yourself as you are. It's not a difficult thing. It's natural. And you can do this through any situation. As you tap into consciousness, consciousness comes to the foreground. And when consciousness is in the foreground, then no matter what is taking place, everything is as it is. And does not alter the state of consciousness. Does not alter consciousness itself. You look into your own life, like from the beginning, you remember of being aware. That which was aware and has been aware, regardless of what has been happening, is the same today that is aware of you doing whatever you're doing, thinking whatever you're doing, experiencing whatever you're experiencing, isn't it? Everything of your existence must report to that in order to exist. Without consciousness, there is nothing. Therefore, consciousness must be that which we are looking for all along. Whatever the experience, whatever is going on in our existence, whatever the situation of the world, consciousness is what we are looking for at all times. For there is only consciousness. Before and after your life, consciousness is and remains.